Hello and welcome to all. If you find your life difficult, it's time to change your perception. Because today, we're going to talk about the animal that wins the prize for the most difficult life. The hippopotamus. This big, buoyant bundle of meat might make you feel like a vacation at sea is hell. But don't worry, we'll clear things up by addressing the 10 reasons why their lives are a daily challenge. Imagine being chased by hunters with guns just because you have a big plump butt and ivory tusks that are highly coveted on the black market. Hippos can defend themselves well in the water, but they are completely defenseless on land, which makes them very vulnerable to poachers. So they must constantly be on guard and live in fear. But that's not all. Hippos are very social animals and live in large families in the swamps and rivers of Africa. So imagine the chaos that occurs when one member of the family is caught by the hunters. The remaining hippos are then left to fend for themselves, unprotected and without the support of their group. They are then even more vulnerable to poachers' attacks. And if that wasn't enough, hippos also face another problem. Their meat is highly valued for its flavor and texture, which makes them even more vulnerable to illegal hunting. So they are under a double threat, both for their ivory tusks and for their meat. It's like being chased by bandits who want not only your beautiful gold watch, but also your delicious ham sandwich. Now imagine having to live in a small house when you're used to having a big villa. It's a bit like having to live in a shoebox when you're used to having a big apartment. Hippos are very territorial animals, and they need a large space to move around and feed. Unfortunately, their natural habitat is constantly threatened by deforestation and human expansion. The rivers and wetlands they live in are regularly drained to make way for new development, forcing them to move to more remote and less secure locations. It's like being forced out of your big apartment and into a small slum outside the city. If that wasn't enough, hippos also have to deal with pollution in their environment. The waters they live in are often contaminated with industrial and household waste, which can make them sick and prevent them from feeding properly. It's a bit like having to drink contaminated water when you're used to drinking clean and pure water. Hippos are considered one of the most dangerous animals in Africa, but it's not always their fault. In fact, they are often in conflict with local farmers who consider them a pest to their crops. Hippos are big eaters and can easily devour an entire crop in no time. Farmers are therefore often forced to hunt or scare them away to protect their investment. However, hippos don't take this very well and tend to react very dramatically. They can suddenly lift tons of mud and water with their powerful tails, sending spray everywhere and flooding crops. Farmers are then forced to run to save their crops, and the hippos can run away laughing hysterically. It is a very comical scene, but also very costly for the farmers. So it seems that hippos and farmers need to find some common ground if they are to coexist peacefully. But the poor things are not all. They also have the threat of being killed by terrible African poachers. Hippos are often hunted for their meat and skin, which puts them in danger of extinction. It's like being constantly chased by people who want to eat you for dinner. Imagine living with the constant fear of being trapped and turned into a steak. But poachers don't just hunt them, they also use cruel and inhuman methods to catch them. Sometimes they set up death traps to catch them, which can cause serious injury and even death. It's like being constantly threatened by death traps set up in your own home. If that wasn't enough, poachers may also be armed with guns and other lethal weapons, making the hippo's life even more difficult. They are under constant pressure to hide and escape from poachers, which prevents them from feeding and resting properly. It's kind of like constantly having to hide and move around to escape people with guns who want to hurt you. To make matters worse, hippos compete for food and habitat all the time. Hippos are very social and territorial animals, which means they are constantly fighting for food and space. It's a bit like constantly having to share your kitchen with dozens of hungry cousins. But it's not just the quantity of food that's a problem, it's also the quality. Hippos eat mostly grasses, but when pasture becomes scarce, they have to make do with eating less nutritious plants. It's kind of like being forced to eat inferior food every day. And it's not just the food that's a problem, but also their habitat. Hippos are forced to share their space with other animals, which can sometimes cause conflicts. It's kind of like being forced to share your room with an angry elephant. And because we have to tell you the truth about these big beasts of several tons, it is true that hippos are, rather aggressive. Hippos are known to be very aggressive animals, which do not hesitate to attack other animals, including humans, if they feel threatened. Imagine yourself constantly fighting with your neighbors to defend your territory. This can be stressful, exhausting, and even dangerous for hippos, who must constantly be on the alert to protect their own lives and territory. And it's not just their aggression that makes life difficult for hippos, but also their territorial behavior. They are very protective of their territory and do not tolerate any intrusion. Imagine living with an angry guard dog that never lets you into your home. This can be stressful and can even lead to violent confrontations with other animals that are looking to share the same territory. In addition to this, the aggressiveness and territorial behavior of hippos can also cause problems for nearby human populations. Hippos may attack humans and domestic animals near their territory, endangering the lives of these people and animals. Bad luck for our friends the hippos. In addition to all these little worries, their sensitive skin and their specific diet. Indeed, hippos have a very sensitive skin, which can easily get irritated and cut when they move in their natural habitat. Imagine having a skin as thin as a sheet of paper and having to wade through muddy water and sharp grass. This can be very painful and can lead to infections if the skin is damaged. And it's not just their skin that makes life difficult for hippos, but also their strict diet. Hippos can only eat grass, and they must eat in large quantities to maintain their large body mass. Imagine eating salads every day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's not very varied and can get boring over time. On top of that, finding quality grass to feed on can be a challenge for hippos. They often have to travel great distances to find food, which can be difficult and exhausting. And if they can't find enough grass to eat, they can become malnourished and even die. As you probably know, hippos are social animals and live in groups called herds. This may seem like an advantage to them, but in reality it can cause problems. First of all, hippos have to compete for food and resources. There is always a stronger, more aggressive individual that dominates the group, which can make life difficult for other members of the herd. Imagine trying to get lunch in your school cafeteria, but you have to fight the other students to get the food you want. It's not fun. On top of that, hippos also have to deal with social pressure to fit in with the group norm. If you are a little different from the norm, it can make life difficult for you. Hippos can be stigmatized if their appearance or behavior doesn't match what is considered normal in their group. Imagine being the only one wearing yellow shoes at a rock concert. You'd feel a little uncomfortable, right? Finally, hippos also have to deal with rivalry and conflict between group members. There will always be rivalries for power and resources, which can cause conflict and tension. Imagine having to fight over the last pizza in your group of friends. It's not much fun. According to experts, our friendly hippo friends suffer from low self-esteem. This may sound strange, but it is true. First of all, hippos can be criticized for their physical appearance. They have rough skin and front teeth that can scare other animals. Imagine being criticized for your physical appearance. It can make you feel very uncomfortable. Secondly, hippos can be criticized for their behavior. They can be seen as aggressive and unsociable, which can make them disliked by other animals. Imagine being criticized for your behavior. It can make you feel very uncomfortable. Finally, hippos can be criticized for their lifestyle. They spend most of their time in the water, which can make them hard to understand for other animals. But hey, don't worry, they stay well away anyway. And on top of that, our hippo friends have a very difficult time moving. Hippos are heavy and massive animals, which makes them difficult to move from their location. Imagine having to move a heavy wardrobe every day. It can be exhausting. And that's not all. Hippos are also very clumsy on land. They can easily trip and fall, which can be very embarrassing for them. You can imagine falling in front of everyone all the time. It can be very humiliating. They are very heavy and can easily sink, which can make them vulnerable to predator attacks. Well, don't worry too much because the adult hippo has no other predator than humans because of its size. The young ones, on the other hand, can be the prey of lions, hyenas, and crocodiles. In addition to all this, hippos also face other challenges, such as rough terrain and muddy areas. Walking over rough terrain can be very difficult for them due to their weight and lack of flexibility, and mud can make it even more difficult to move. Ultimately, the difficulty in moving can make life very difficult for hippos. However, they have also developed strategies to compensate for their difficulty in moving, such as swimming or running quickly. So there you have it. We have explored the challenges of a hippo's life and laughed at their crazy situations. But now it's time to say goodbye to this thick-skinned, sharp-toothed old friend. I hope you took a lesson today about perseverance and fortitude, because despite all the hardships in their lives, hippos continue to swim through the rough waters. So the next time you see a hippo in a park, be sure to give it a little wave and wish it luck in its next challenges. Because who knows, maybe one day we too will be faced with challenges as great as his.